step 2 day, or B. Sugdan man akong letter. So, B na lang ta. B is to solve for your Rx and Ry. Now, basically, your Rx, meaning the x component of the resultant, is just the sum of all the x component. That means, okay, first vector ni mo nga x, ug second vector ni mo nga x. Maura na siya class. So, akong butangan dali no, sum of all x components. And I'm feeling hungry. So, akong sulat dali. Rx. So, ganito nakuha na to sa mx. Itantaw ta dali. Tara, mx. Akong i-check ha para makita ninyo. Or pangit kayo. Ini siya. mx, negative 3 square root of 2 meters. Negative 3 over 2, sorry. Negative 3 over 2 meters. And then your nx, we just solved it that earlier, that's negative 5 over 2 meters. So you have negative 5 over 2 meters. So my Rx will just be, I'm going to factor out the common term, which is 1/2. I'm hoping you can see that 1/2 is common. And then negative 3 na lang mabilin for the first term. And for the second term is negative 5. Because I basically factored out 1/2. And I have m. Now your resultant in x is equal to 1/2 multiplied by this one, negative 3 minus 5. That is just negative 8. And so, simplification further gives me negative 8 over 2, that is just negative 4 meters. And so, your Rx is negative 4 meters. So, siyang i-highlight class. Negative 4 meters. Now, take note, maong akong ginaingon no? Ganina nga, we have to sketch first where is your resultant vector. Kasi nga, makatabang na siya check na to class. Lantawa, Rx nimo from your very first sketch is on quadrant 3, which has negative x na value sa imong x. So, since nakuha nimo nga negative ang nakita nimo, negative 4. So, meaning correct ka ana. Or at least dakog chance nga sakto imong pag-solve sa imong Rx. Tawagan imong Rx diri, negative. So, that's a good sign. Now, we are going to proceed to Ry. So, if ang Rx nimo class kay sa ganitong Rx nimo, your Rx is just the sum of all the x components, imong Ry sub, the same ra siya logic. It's the sum of all the y components. Kasi nga, mao ganing tawag siya Ry. That means to say that your resultant vector in y component, that is just the y component of your first vector, which is m, plus the y component of your second vector, which is n. I'm going to take the sum of the two vectors. Gisolve naman ako na. Tara. Square root of, ano sa ganito? Tara, 3 over 2 square root of 3. So, 3 over 2 square root of 3 meters. How about your ny? Tara diri. Negative 5 over 2 square root of 3. Negative 5 over 2 square root of 3 meters. Now, I know na medyo na-intimidate mo, no? Daghan kay mga square roots, sir, makalagot kayo. So, just leave it at ease, as is. You don't have to worry inside decimal point na equivalent ana niya. Okay? So, ani class? Unsa may common term? So, I'm going to highlight the common term kaya ako siyang i-factor. I have 2 in the denominator. I'm going to change the radius of that. Here, we have 2 in the denominator. We also have 2, so 2 is common in the denominator. And in the numerator, square root of 3 is common. That means to say, I'm going to factor that out. So I will have square root of 3 all over 2. And what is left on my first term is just 3 meters minus, basically that one here, minus, so ako lang nang i-distribute, no? So yung math ba? Plus times negative, that will yield negative. So minus, ano sa may nabilin? Si 5 na lang dayon. Okay, minus 5 meters. Okay, so I'm going to simplify further. I have square root of 3 all over 2. But do note that 3 minus 5 is just negative 2 meters. And sa may nakita ni mo class, you have 2 in the numerator and also 2 in the denominator that will just cancel out, giving you 1. Bali, negative 2 over 2 ba? Negative 1 naman na siya. So that means to say that your resultant vector in y is just, so man yung nakita, negative square root of 3 meters. So that's your resultant in y. So again, I'm going to recap the step 2. You get the components, Rx and Ry. And how do you get Rx? Rx is merely the sum of all the x components of your vectors m and your vector n. So for Ry, the same ra gyapon siya class. That is merely the sum of all the y components of your two vectors. Now, since you are dealing with vectors m and n, that means to say that it's m sub y plus n sub y. Okay. So I'm hoping you understood that portion because we are going to go to C or step 3.